the last episode, we finished chapter 5 and we move into chapter 6, and it starts with giving to the needy, and I find this one interesting. Well, I find where people have taken this to be interesting.
This, like, immediately, my thoughts go to this. So fair warning, I'm going to use this phrasing quite a bit as we do this, but this immediately shines light on the hypocrisy of evangelicals.
Yes, and that's kind of what I was thinking about, because it talks about the obvious thing here is what's literally here in the text, and it was basically Jesus saying not to practice righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. Don't go about your practice of Christianity in a way that you're showing off. It's boastful. But even beyond that, it's interesting to me, like in this country, many times churches are saying, well, the government doesn't need to be providing for the poor. That's the church's responsibility. And I feel like you got to question somebody who's like, well, why is it the church's responsibility? Who said it's solely the church's responsibility? It shouldn't be. And then I guess where you get to directly transgress against what is being taught in the first verse is that a lot of times the reason for not wanting the church to be responsible for taking care of the needy and so forth is so that they can proselytize them. And you were speaking a few episodes ago about how I think it was Emily's the version of outreach was like, hey, we go somewhere, we go help them, we provide a need, and then we worship on our own for ourselves. We obviously anyone is invited, but it's not required. It is not you need to listen to us because we did a thing for you.
Yes.
And so this is exactly that thing. You don't help the needy. It doesn't say help the needy so that you can tell them about me. It just says help the needy. And it says quite the opposite. Don't show them.
Yes, and don't make a show of it. Yeah, that's the other piece that's important here. I can't even begin to remember the number of times I've seen people emphasize some action, such as tithing or reading the Bible or prayer or you name it, but some action tied to religious faith in a public manner and intentionally so. It's fine if you are spotted in public doing something. It's not saying to hide what you do, but it's very easy to identify when people are either emphasizing actions and tying it to some kind of theater, or doing something in a way that makes sure it's seen. There's a difference between that and just happening to be seen. And the entire premise of Christianity as a whole is to be an example for others to want to know why you are the way you are, and for them to seek what it is that drives you or makes you do, or the things you do or the choices you make. It's all about being the example and about empathizing with and loving other people, period. I mean, that if you could make it as simple a statement as possible, that's it.
Yeah.
And this just emphasizes that in so clear a fashion that I struggle oftentimes with how any church gets it wrong. I should rephrase that, because I actually don't have much faith in pretty much any church. I struggle with how it is so consistently gotten wrong. I'll put it that way. And the only way it can be so consistently wrong is when an organization or entity begins to look at itself more as a business than as a community and a place of understanding these ideas and teachings. I was trying to keep it as many generic words as I could so that it could be applicable in other arenas as well. But it's tough with this particular topic because it's so ingrained in, quite frankly, Christian teachings in churches everywhere.
Yeah, it demonstrates the point that people will find things to support what they already want to believe,
and to emphasize that they're already a good person. I think that's maybe even a better distinction, is that people tend to emphasize things that validates their self-view.
Yes, yeah.
And anyone who has grown up in and around and internalized evangelical teachings is seeking validation for their adherence to those teachings. And that leads to the theater surrounding presenting oneself as a good Christian.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of that, honestly, is just pure hypocrisy from the get-go. I mean, be the person you are. If you decide that you are a Christian and identify as a Christian, then be a Christian. Don't pretend. Don't make a show of it. Do it. And if you can't do it, you're not a Christian. I mean, that's it. Harsh, but I mean, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, a spade is a spade.
Yeah. And because it was harsh, I do want to acknowledge, if you actually are someone who chooses the path of Christianity, identifies as a Christian, it's very clearly stated, we'll eventually get to it, that no one is perfect. No one is fully capable of doing this thing. The desire to continue to be better and to attempt to do so is kind of the core tenet and idea. I don't want to jump too far ahead, though. We'll discuss it when we get there. Just want to make sure that if someone happens to listen and take issue with me being very blunt with this, it's not a lack of acknowledging other things that come later. We just haven't gotten there in this series yet.
I was going to say the next couple of sections follow the same theme about with prayer, not praying like the hypocrite and standing in front of people and doing it for show. And that's where you get the famous Lord's Prayer. Same thing. It's like it's a call for or a directive for actual substance in the faith, in the religion, and not doing things for show, not doing things for your own edification. So
yeah, I want to take this one a step further. There's the traditional. I'm going to rephrase or change how I was going to phrase it slightly. So, one, absolutely agree with what you're saying. The thing that bothers me here is that there are many instances where you have traditional or seemingly traditional views and actions, such as praying before mealtime or pausing in prayer with family for something, right? Like there's this group activity of making it a presentation or a thing. And I've always read that as a violation of what prayer is. And I think, I don't know how much of that is trying to take this too literally versus the spirit of what this is actually saying. So the reason I say all of that way is that this is applicable whether you choose Christian prayer, just being in tune with nature and trying to become more peaceful internally. Like there's to me, this is very specifically for this thing that you are pursuing. Take time to reflect privately and figure out how you form a stronger relationship with this thing. So if it's, and I keep using nature as the counterpoint only because I like when we talked about Harrison Ford's interview, mentioning nature as the thing. And so I'm going to use it as my counter example for most things because I like that dichotomy. But if we need to use another example, like by all means, just toss one out there. But so let's just say that you consider it to be nothing divine. It's all purely natural and everything else. I think you could still make the case that, okay, for me to attain a better version of myself and be more at peace with the world at large, I need some time in nature. I need to get closer to it, right? Or pursue it in some fashion. And this is still very much along the same lines where maybe it's not prayer, but it is quiet reflection. It's for you. It's internal. And it's trying to figure out how you fit into nature at large. And then for the counterpoint, if you think about it from a prayer perspective, it's not making a show of thanking or blessing a meal or asking for something. It's taking time individually for furthering your relationship with God. And again, this is like because of that interpretation and because of the way it's written, I've always had problems with general public prayer.
Interesting.
I don't know where I would take it from there. It's just, it seems like a very interesting point because it's very anti the view of established religious services and traditions.
Well, I mean, it's very much what the Bible says. Because like the whole time I was thinking about this, I was going to ask you what you thought about this thinking about things like I don't know if they still do this in the schools anymore, but there's this whole chip on the shoulder among evangelicals about having Christian prayer removed from public schools. And so now, when I was in high school, they had the See You at the Pole, where it was just, since you couldn't pray in school officially, you could, nobody's saying you can't be on the school campus and pray. And nobody's saying that you can't have something that is completely unrelated to the school, but meet at the school campus and pray. So
yeah, I remember so many conversations, because for me it was, they introduced the moment of silence in place of prayer in middle school. And I thought that was a perfect change. That was absolutely the way it should have been from day one, from my view. Part of it was my issue with public prayer, and part of it was just, I know these people, not everybody means this anyway. It's a farce. Why are we doing it? Kind of thing. And that's
the hypocrites.
It's a cynical outlook, but it's just like the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, none of us mean it when we say we're pledging allegiance to the flag. We're just reciting it because we're told we have to.
Well, I was just going to say, how many times do these sections start with "Do not be like the hypocrite"? When you do this thing, don't be like the hypocrites. Like yes. It's several sections in a row, And so there's nothing new here. There's nothing new in our day and age about how people behave, regarding this sort of dynamic. And it was just like, I even look at it, it's like, hey, you want to go pray out, even with what this verse teaches, like, I think you could do something humble, but it's this whole idea that, as a Christian, you are now, I guess the problem I saw, the problem I have with it is, like, I see Christians pretending to be or thinking they are oppressed when they are not. And when they said, "Oh, we're going to have a moment of silence," because I remember at some point being in school and I don't remember there ever being prayer, but I remember having a moment of silence. And who the hell cares what you do with that moment of silence? Maybe you just want to be quiet and have a moment, where the whole room is quiet. But yeah, you absolutely can pray for yourself. I remember even thinking as a kid, it's like, if they say I can't pray in school, I didn't understand. Nobody took the time to explain what removing prayer from the school actually was. But I was just like, I can pray. I remember thinking, I can pray in my head at every meal, at every lunch that I have at that school, and nobody's going to stop me. So,
yeah, and the funny thing is, that's exactly what this is basically saying. It's just because it says retreat into your private room, that doesn't mean you have to go close the door and lock it. Your private room can be mental
in your mind. Yeah. I was going to say, if you've seen Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch.
I actually have not, but I do have them. Like, I actually intentionally bought them via iTunes in order to watch them, and just haven't gotten around to watching them.
Well, then I will stop right there, because I don't want no spoilers. I recommend that you and Emily watch those. Each episode is like a movie.
Yeah, and that's the main reason we haven't gotten around to them, because with the disparate bedtimes, it's difficult to watch a movie length thing in one sitting.
It's quite good. Was there any more you wanted to say about prayer before going to fasting?
Yeah, one little other thing that I want to add on, because I did kind of harshly say that I always had a problem with it. I also don't have a problem with traditions that are something that everybody agrees to. If you, as a small group, want to pray as a small group, I don't think there's a reason to say no. Like, it's not for show, it's not for theater, we have chosen to do this as a thing for our family. That's fine. It's not for me, but that's fine. I want to acknowledge the difference between it being for production and being for theater, and something that it's just an internalization and expression of shared family values.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I honestly don't think it's up. I don't have a problem with people praying out publicly, as long as they are being respectful. And I think that's the spirit of what's here. It's like, be respectful of others. Don't do this to be boastful, like the hypocrites.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I have to laugh just because even with fasting, it's talking about don't be like the hypocrites. It's every single.
I know.
one.
I know. Yeah, there's not there's not a lot of thoughts I have on fasting, but it just follows the same theme. Don't do this for show. Don't do this to show how good you are at Christianity or how good you are at religion. So.
I find the fasting verses interesting because it's almost a do this as a part of your faith, but don't let people know you are doing it. Like, take steps to mask the obvious signs of this thing. And I don't know how I would interpret that in anything else other than a continuation of this is just a way to help ensure you are not making a show of things. Like, if you can take precautions to make sure it is not something that is interpreted as making a show of it, take those precautions.
Yeah, I like that. you could take it more broadly and say, hey, there are things that your faith, things that you are going to want to do, things that are maybe required of you in your faith, and the whole point of it is that, for that person, not for those that are around you.
Yeah, I like that summary a little bit better. But yeah, same idea.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot else to say about it. So,
I think the next section is actually fairly interesting. I mean, it can be summarized so simply and so succinctly, but I think it's where
it's good advice.
Yeah, it's the root of where the current modern megastructures start to get it wrong. And so maybe for sake of clarity, like the section is talking about don't collect treasures on earth, blah blah blah, right? Like it's whatever you collect and acquire and accumulate, that's where your mindset's going to be. Like the final verse is where your treasure is, there your heart will also be.
Mm-hmm.
And that specific section is where I think the turning point for the church as an entity gets it wrong. Because there's a point where the church is the treasure, to borrow from the verse. It becomes the thing that has to be present and sustained at some level of equilibrium or growth. Because otherwise, it spells ruin for everybody. And just to clarify, I'm saying that this is a bad thing. I'm not saying that this is a justification in any way, shape, fashion, or form, because it's absolutely against the understanding of what's being presented. But I think that this is subconsciously, to an extent, what drives the continued bad interpretations or misinformation or problems in general that you see in most established religious gatherings or places of worship. Maybe that's a good way to encompass all the different groups and entities, because there's a point where the group or entity becomes this thing of importance subconsciously, but it drives decision making instead of an adherence to the core principles and values that brought the establishment of that entity into being. I hope you were able to follow the...
Yeah, I think so.
Because I don't really know of a better way to put it. And again, that's my personal view of where things start to go wrong for so many different organizations. That does put aside that a lot of them are born out of incorrect teachings in the first place. But I think if you go far enough back, you get the same issue.
Yeah, I think about it, and it's like there are some places that they appear obvious to me. There's some churches, some believers that it appears obvious to me that the incorrect teachings are purposeful. Like, if we teach this way, we get this result. We justify these actions. We support these beliefs that we already have. But then so that's a thing that exists. But then there's there are a much smaller number of people. It's like that's just what they've been taught. It's a core value in their life, and they don't know how to unlearn it, or it's very difficult to unlearn. And at some point, you're faced with what would be called cognitive dissonance, and you have to make a choice about what you believe. And so
I'm going to rephrase it, and let's see if maybe it changes the interpretation a little bit. Where your time is spent, there your heart will also be.
Yeah. What you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're dwelling upon.
Right. So I think part of the problem with this particular verse is everyone always wants to think it's material acquisition because that's what it describes.
It is on the surface,
and it is, but it's also those other things, yeah. And if you think about a lot of the problems with the far extreme ends of different religious groups, it's the time investment and the devotion to that group that becomes problematic.
So I was in church my whole life, my whole childhood, and was very involved. Like if somebody was gonna walk up to you in the mall in the '90s and tell you about Jesus and how much He loves you and how much you need to repent for your sins and so forth, the typical evangelical proselytizing. It was there's a good chance it could be me. And I having looked at this passage, and I'm quite familiar with the treasures in heaven, those couple of verses, but I am way less familiar with the part that follows that, where it just talks about like the eyes are like the lamp of a body, and if your eyes are healthy, you are healthy, and if they are not, you're unhealthy. So it talks about the like I think it's interesting. It does talk about the material goods because that's important. That's that might be where it starts up or a place to start, but it goes further into a more abstract version of this concept, and it's just like who you are inside is either good, is either light or dark, and it has all to do with where your thoughts are, what you're dwelling upon, and so forth.
If you really want to make this thought of like the rephrasing seem prophetic, yeah, prophetic. Yeah, go ahead and slip into the next section too, where it even wraps it up with a nice little bow, saying no one can be a slave of two masters. Either you serve God or you serve money, being the examples. But it's very clear that what this section is telling us in general is if you are going to choose to serve something, that is what you serve. You cannot serve more than one thing. And going back to my nature analogy, just because I want to, be consistent, if you choose to pursue a closeness with nature and understanding your place in nature, you can't then turn around and serve, an oil drilling organization to destroy everything you come into contact with to try to get more oil. It's a similar kind of example when you talk about God and money, when you talk about nature and ecological disaster. It's not saying that one is absent the other at all. It's saying that you're going to choose one that's going to preserve this thing, or you're going to choose one that's going to damage this thing.
Mm-hmm. So I guess corporations are not Christian.
Yeah, there should never be a Christian corporation. So this is one of those things where I have issues with the lack of separation between religious beliefs or thoughts and other activities in general, because there have been plenty of small businesses that talk about being faith-based in some fashion. We don't allow faith-based businesses in a lot of arenas, but for some reason, a business owner can then apply their values to their business if they're small enough, or you can be a faith-based care providing place. And I've never understood why we make those distinctions, but that's a whole separate, there's no reason to get into that at this point. But where I was going with it is there's an issue with applying faith to anything other than an individual, because everything in the teachings, regardless of whether you want to apply them from a perspective of being Christian or non-Christian, it's all about the self and the self's relationship with that thing they believe in. And the only way a corporation or any business or any other entity could be a self is if you want to bastardize everything about it.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.